The Cleveland Community Police Commission comes to order. Today is Wednesday, September 27th, and it is now 6:18. I want to thank you for your patience. We were trying to get the live stream working. It is not set up quite yet, so the meeting would be recorded, for viewing or listening at a later time. We want to thank those of you who are in the audience tonight, as well as those who are listening and viewing from home. I think it's important that our meetings are shared with the greater community, and that you are privy to our discussions and the decisions that are made. Tonight, we want to extend a very special thank you for the members of the Boys and Girls Club here. So will you stand, please? Don't sit yet, because I also want to acknowledge that these young people came in, got this room set up for our meeting here tonight, which means that they are actively engaged in the work that the community does. The work that the commission does for the community. We appreciate your efforts, and we hope that during the public comment session that you will have an opportunity to share any comments that you have about what you hear at this meeting, or any other thoughts that you may have based on the work that this commission is charged with. So we thank you for your attendance, and more importantly, we thank you for setting the meeting up for us, and we're looking forward to hearing your engagement in tonight's meeting. So thank you so very much. We're going to give them another round of applause. I'll let you sit down now, thank you. So let's have a roll call of attendance, please. Commissioner Adams.
Present.
Commissioner Benito.
Present.
Commissioner Chura.
Present.
Commissioner Donaldson.
Present.
Commissioner Early. Commissioner Garrett Ferguson.
Present.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Present.
Commissioner Reeves.
Present.
Commissioner Van Leer.
Present.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Present.
Commissioner Wong.
Present.
Commissioner Zayed.
Present.
And Commissioner Ridgway. I'm here. So there are three sets of meeting minutes that we need to approve tonight. The first one is, let me make sure we have, I'm assuming that everybody has read them and prepared to take a vote on these minutes. They're from previous meetings. Just hold on one second for me, because I want to pull them up by date and put them on the table for approval by date. I think that they were distributed to the commissioners, and you had an opportunity to review them for accuracy, and changes were made as necessary, and now they're before the full commission for acceptance. This is what happened with technology. I don't have a hard copy of those minutes, so just give me a second to pull them up, please. Pull up Ryan's email for me.
Okay.
Oh, here they are. Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
So the first set of minutes for adoption, that was the last set. Let's start with the most recent and work back. So the August 23rd minutes, this meeting was held at Cleveland Public Library, Huff Branch. Do we have a motion to accept these minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes from August 23rd?
I so move.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made and second to approve the minutes of August 23rd. We're ready for the vote. All those approve. I don't think we need to do a voice roll call on this, huh? So if there are any objections to these minutes from August 23rd? If none, we will accept we have a rejection on this end, okay.
I just feel we should follow our rules and do a roll call vote. It shouldn't take more than 15 seconds, 30 seconds, so
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, even though there were no objections to these minutes, it has been requested by a commissioner that we do a roll call vote on them. So for August 23rd, let's just do a roll call vote. Commissioner Adams?
Aye.
Commissioner Benito?
Aye.
Commissioner Chura?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer?
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Wong?
Aye.
And Commissioner Zayed?
Aye.
Okay, the next set of minutes that we are putting before the commission for approval is the July 26 minutes. This was when the meeting was held at Harvard Community Center. Do we have a motion to accept these minutes?
I move to pass the minutes, vote on the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion has been moved and second to approve the minutes of July 26, 2023, of the meeting that was held at Harvard Community Center. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Adams?
Aye.
Commissioner Benito?
Aye.
Commissioner Chura?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer?
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Wong?
Aye.
And Commissioner Zayed?
Aye.
Okay, these are minutes of July 26 have been approved. The third set of minutes, I guess it's for June. Hold on 1 minute, I need to pull those up. I think it's from the June 14th minutes, from the June 14th meeting. It's been a long day, I'm sorry. The June 14th meeting that was held at the Perkins office. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I move to approve those meeting minutes.
Okay, that motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Adams?
Aye.
Commissioner Benito?
Aye.
Commissioner Chura?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer?
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Wong?
Aye.
And Commissioner Zayed?
Aye.
And Commissioner Ridgway? Aye. Okay, so thank you for the approval of those 3 sets of minutes from 3 previous meetings. That means that we are pretty much caught up with our minutes, and the next set should be the minutes from tonight's meeting. So we want to cover the decorum that's expected. We want to expect the opinions of everyone who has something that they want to share with the commission. We ask that the audience also respect the opinions of the commission, and that there will be an opportunity for you to respond during the public comment session. During the public comment session, your comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and you would have an opportunity to express a comment, but we will not respond to those comments. They will become part of the minutes, and some of your comments may actually be used in some of our committee meetings, or it may be, you may bring up issues that we may need to discuss during our leadership meeting or during other committee meetings of the commission. But we will ask that we all conduct ourselves accordingly and respectfully listen, and during public comment session, the public will be able to share. We have welcomed our guests already, both at home and in the audience. And at this time, we will invite our interim executive director, Jason Goodrick. He's going to make a presentation on the framework. of the Community Police Commission committees.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. It's great to see so many people here, especially so many young people. It's not too often that we have a room full of young people, and I really think this is a wonderful moment for us to have so many of you here. So thank you for your time tonight, and thank you for coming out. I know watching things like this can be a little bit boring at times, right? But this is how your government in Cleveland functions. This is how the citizens have asked us to work to improve the Cleveland Division of Police, and you sitting here tonight is a big part of that. So this is your future being talked about in this room. So it's really awesome that that you're sitting through this tonight and listening and being a part of it. And hopefully we'll see your faces again when you go through this experience and you want to come back and add more value to this work, because these commissioners are dependent on hearing your voice, just like everybody else's voice, to know what you expect out of them and out of your police department. So give yourselves a round of applause for being here tonight. So for commissioners, some of this will be repetitive because you've heard me talk about the framework a lot, but we have officially completed our initial work on our plan. And when we say framework for the community, for those who don't know, this is our work plan, right? So this is what the commissioners are going to be working on for the remainder of this year and next year, written down for everyone to see, so people get an understanding. So let's start with, if you can advance the slide for me, just talking a little bit about the CPC. Okay, so for those who are new, sitting with us this evening, we were established in 2015 as part of the consent decree. The consent decree was a deal brokered between the federal government, the Department of Justice, who was going to sue the city of Cleveland because they believed that the city of Cleveland Police Department was engaging in what's called a pattern and practice of violating people's constitutional rights. So in order to prevent a lawsuit where they would have to go to court and argue whether that did or didn't occur, the city agreed with the United States government to improve the police department and the way the police department operates. So that's called the consent decree. That is the written agreement that they made with the government and the city of Cleveland to improve it. And we were part of that. So that was the initial commission in 2015. And then later on down the road in 2021, the citizens of Cleveland decided they wanted the commission to be here always. And not only did they want the commission to be here always, they wanted the commission to have more powers than it had before. So the voters said yes to that, and here we are. The 13 individuals that you're looking at right here have powers to improve the police department using community's voice. So if the community brings a concern, if the community is unhappy with something that's happening on the police department, this board and body here can work to fix that problem, or at least have the conversation with that problem. And in some instances, they can even order the police to do something differently. Next slide, please. So we talked about the consent decree a little bit. We can move on past this one. One more slide. Okay, so this is what some of the key areas were that were concerning about the way the police were operating at the time. So this was 2015, right? They wanted to see more community engagement. They wanted to see the police officers out there getting to know the community, being part of the community, talking to the community, engaging with the community. They wanted to see more community involvement in the community, telling police what they think the police should be working on, and the police working to help solve that problem jointly with the community. That's called community and problem-oriented policing. They wanted to see policing without bias. So bias is the concept of no matter what your race is, no matter what your level of income is, no matter what country you're from, right? The police treat you equally and fairly always. So they wanted to see that happen. Use of force. We wanted to see police be able to do their job under the Constitution So if you were to be arrested, right, to be arrested without harm or using force would be the ideal scenario. Recognizing that sometimes that has to happen, but it was happening more than it needed to in Cleveland. So that was why it would needed to be improved there. Crisis intervention is when somebody may have been diagnosed with a medical problem or a mental condition, and as a result of that, they might go into crisis, like they were extremely depressed, right? The police would get called to that, but we want the police to treat them more like a person in a medical emergency than a criminal. So that is what crisis intervention is. Search and seizure is about your rights to protect your goods and your things that you own in your life from unwarranted intrusion. So the police can't just go in your house. They can't just search your car, right? So there are only specific reasons that they can do that. That was one of the areas of improvement. We wanted the police department, we wanted to know more about what the police department does and how they operate. So that's transparency. And then we also wanted to help the officers. We wanted to have them be better trained, have better equipment, all of those things. So those were all areas that we're focused on when we were beginning our work, and they are now areas that this commission has a lot of authority into permanently forever on behalf of the citizens. Next slide, please. So this is the government of Cleveland is run by what's called the charter. So the charter amendment is, the number for that is 115.5. So if you were to look up exactly what this commission is allowed to do, the way to do that is to search for the Cleveland City Charter, and then the number 115.5 or the Community Police Commission. And it's a long, it is the law in the city of Cleveland, and it gives this board, these 13 people, it talks about what their powers are and what they're allowed to do on a very detailed level. So it will give you exactly what they are allowed to do under the law. Next slide, please. All right. So before in 2015, we were temporary, and we can only recommend changes. But now in 2024, going into 2024, okay, we are independent. That's one of the key things. We are final authority over CDP policies. When I say CDP, that's the Cleveland Police. So they can actually say, we don't like this policy, the community doesn't like this policy, you're going to change this policy. Never before could citizens do that with the police department. And discipline, that's important too. When a police officer gets in trouble, sometimes the community members are upset because the police officer doesn't get enough discipline, right? So this board is allowed to hear those cases, look into that, and then decide if that police officer should have more punishment than they got from the police chief. So that's something that's very important as well. Next slide, please. So these are the 13 individuals that were selected to do this job on the citizens' behalf. And they represent a whole bunch of expertise and life experience, but they all have one thing in common, and that is they are residents of the city of Cleveland just like you are, if you're in this audience and you are a resident. Next slide, please. And this is a list of their names. They all have name tags, and on our website at clecpc.org, you can look up more information about them and their individual bios and why they chose to be here. Next slide, please. So we are responsible for several areas that are very important, and that is the accountability, the bias-free policing, things that we talked about. Civilian oversight of police is the broad thing of what we do here. Search and seizure and use of force. Next slide. How did we get to our work plan? So I'm going to show you what exactly they're going to work on. But first we have to answer the question, if they were appointed in January, it's been almost a year, right? So what have they done so far? And the answer to that is, they're all experts in a lot of things that they do in their lives, right? They came in here, they all have different levels of education, different levels of work experience, different jobs. What we had to do in this first 8 months of them being seated was train them on police stuff specifically, right? So that they could understand how the police operate, what the police policies are, what the law says the police are allowed to do so that they can do their jobs correctly. They also had to establish their own rules for how they operate in the charter and the laws. So you'll hear them cite rules tonight. They'll talk about rules a little bit. That is part of what they had to do because this body never existed before. They had to start everything from the beginning, started from scratch. So that is what they were mandated to do under 115.5, and that is what they have been doing up until now. But now that they're trained, they have written their rules, they have their budget, which is what money they're allowed to spend for the year. They're going to get to work on the actual police portion of 115.5, and that's what we're going to show you tonight, what they're going to work on for the next roughly a year so that people can get involved in that work. Next slide, please. So how do they do their work? In order to do it, everybody has a different desire for the things that they want to work on. And it's important to know that there is more work that can be done than there are people available to do the work. That's why we rely on the community so much, right? But they have to decide, what are we actually going to work on? If we have this big pile of stuff we can work on, how do we bring it down to a practical, reasonable thing? How much work can we actually get done in a day? And what is the most important work to work on? So that was the discussion. And those discussions were broken down by committees. So the way that they work is they break into small groups called committees. And those committees are listed here. So there's the Police Policy Committee. They work on, I'll go into what each one of these works on as we get to the slide, but the Police Accountability Committee, the Police Training Committee, the Internal Training Committee, which is what do they need to learn and grow to be good at their job. Their rules, how do they make their own rules to do their job. Budgets and grants, that's talking about the money. That's how they manage their money that they have to spend in a year. And then the Outreach Committee, and that committee focuses on how do you best engage with the community and get the most community input. Next slide, please. All right, so there were copies of this outside on the table. It's called the framework. It's the work plan if you're interested in taking a deep look at it. I'm not going to go into every detail of it, but it came from our own rules. So this body voted and said that every year, beginning in their second year, the commission shall make a good faith effort to share a strategic framework with the communities and stakeholders each year. So that rule goes on a little further to say that plan will have community feedback, so it will be done in conjunction with everybody, giving some feedback onto what the community wants them to work on. It will align with people's concerns. So if people are concerned about a particular issue with police, like too much cars being stopped or people being treated a certain way, we would listen to that and see if we can fit it into the work plan and make it a priority. And then it sets goals. So every committee has goals in their work with timelines of when they want to achieve them. Next slide, please. So the first committee we'll start with is the Accountability Committee. And what the Accountability Committee does is they have oversight of the discipline of police, the process of discipline. They look at all the discipline and accountability data. They lead, and they also are in charge of prepping the committee if they have to do kind of a trial for a police officer who was disciplined, and they want to look at that case. They don't review every police officer who gets in trouble at work, but they do pick the ones that they want to look at. And those ones take a lot of prep work. You have to do the research. You have to look at the whole case. And so this group, this committee is in charge of prepping that whole case to be heard by the commission. And then some of the projects that they selected to do this year are what's called a Brady-Giglio work group. Now, I mentioned the charter 115.5. One of the things in the charter that's never existed before in Cleveland is there is a court case where officers who may have lied in the past or have done something like be arrested themselves may not be able to be witnesses in a case if they make an arrest. And it has to do with officer integrity. So we as a commission are charged with looking at officers with integrity violations and creating a list of officers who may have integrity violations and then putting that out to the public. It's something that hasn't been done before, to our knowledge, anywhere in the United States. It's a really hard issue to tackle. So that's one of the first things on our work group list, is to create a small group of people, experts in this area, to figure out how we're going to do that as quickly as possible and get that list out to the public, because the law says we have to do that. The discipline work group is going to look at discipline as a whole to see how that system is working, to see if police are actually getting in trouble when they should be in trouble, and if they did something wrong under their own rules, if they are held accountable for that by breaking the rules. The workforce and labor management work group, the police are part of what's called unions, the public safety unions. There are 2 separate unions. Sometimes the union issues affect other aspects of our work. So part of this the accountability work this year will be to look at the union contracts and see if there's any conflicts between the contracts and what we have to do under our own rules. So that is something that is a little bit challenging to decipher. So we will also have a work group that deals with that. And then there's a gender-based violence, sexual misconduct work group, which will look at how the Division of Police is handling things related to gender complaints, gender violence, both with each other. How are they treating each other? Are they respecting those boundaries with gender? And then also the community as well. So that is another work group that was brought here. Next slide, please. So the policy committee, the police have to follow what's called their own policies, and they're referred to as general police orders. So the order will say exactly how a police officer should perform in a situation, like if they were if they were going to chase a car, right? There is a rule for how they're allowed to do that. That's the policy, and it's called a general police order. So this committee helps make those policies the best that they can be. Some of the things that they're working on is going to be, you may have heard a lot about something called ShotSpotter. You may have heard the terms like AI. If you're familiar with things like ChatGPT that's out there for the youth, right? The police are starting to use those tools. And so we have a work group that's going to look at to make sure that when police use things like cameras and AI and other tools, that they're doing it fairly, and they're doing it within their policy, and they're not breaking the law when they're using those tools to make arrests and solve crimes. So very important aspect in this generation, and that's one of the things that we're going to have a work group for. You may have heard too that we don't have enough police officers right now, that there may be some people out there who are saying there aren't enough police officers to do the work. We have a group that's actually going to look at that and see if that's the case, and if it is the case, how we can help with that, or if it's not the case, how we can improve the police officers that we bring in here in Cleveland, which is part of the consent decree. Police pursuits is a very important part of this. And then again, that bias-free policing concept, right? Where the police should be treating every person equally and fairly. So that is another important part of our work that we're going to look at in this next year. Next slide, please. The training committee covers how the police get their training, what type of training. If we want the best police officers, we have to train them, right? So if we make a policy, we have to train them, we have to teach them, they have to learn, they have to grow so that they can do what they need to do without violating their rules and their policies. So this is what that group covers. So we're going to do a community event. And it'll be announced within the next couple of months what the exact dates are, probably within 30 days. And what we're going to do is we're going to invite the public to come and see how the police train for use of force. And the public's going to get to go through some of that training so that they can learn and understand it, and then say what they like about it, what can improve about it, how it works, and give us some feedback. So that's one of the major projects here. Again, bias-free policing, but this is for how we train police to be fair and unbiased in their job. So those are some of the major things in there. And this group works closely with the police, have their own committee that plans their training out a year in advance. So in this next year, we'll be working with them to plan their 2025 training. So all of the training that they get in a year, we will have a say in that. We will be working to improve it and make it the best that it can be, because we want the best trained police force, because a better trained police force means that when they do their job, they will do it without bias and respect for the laws and all of those things that the citizens have asked them to do. Next slide. And the last committee we're going to cover is the Outreach Committee. And this committee is building a survey that's going to go out soon that's going to ask you about your experience with the Cleveland Division of Police. That survey will be out before the end of the year. And it's really important that we get a lot of opinions and feedback from all different people in Cleveland, right? But more specifically, we want to hear from the youth. We want to hear from the communities who are most policed, which we all know are the East Side, the Black and Brown communities, right? So we want that feedback. We want to know what your experience is with the Cleveland Division of Police so that we can then make sure that we hear your words and make that part of our work here at the Police Commission. Very important. That'll be out, and we'll partner with the Boys and Girls Club, and I hope to get some of the youth in this room might want to come back and help us so you can get your peers and your classmates to return this survey and give us good information. And then we're also going to look at how the Cleveland Division of Police does their community engagement, right? So we're going to do an assessment of that. Is it making a difference? Are they coming and talking to the right people? Are they engaging in the right places? All of those things are things that we want to know. They have a very busy community engagement schedule, but we want to know, is that community engagement making a difference? So if the police are coming out and they're going to a meeting or they're doing an event, I'm sure they've come to the Boys and Girls Club before, right? Did you feel like you learned anything? Was that beneficial to you? So those are the things that we're going to look at through this group. And they're also going to design a plan that talks about where we're going to go, who we're going to engage with, what kind of events we're going to have. So those are some of the highlights that are in our work plan that you're going to hear this commission discuss tonight and take fully into consideration and hopefully adopt so that you'll know, everyone will know what we're working on, what schedule we're working on. Next slide, please. So here's an example of, in the next 3 months, what you can expect to see out of this plan. So it gets very detailed, right? So here are some of the things. So in 2022, this commission did a report that asked the police to do certain things about ShotSpotter and surveillance and drones and other things. So one of the things that they're going to do in the next 3 months is look at that report that was already done and check in with the police in the city to see if they did any of the things that we had recommended they do. And if not, then they're going to design a plan to make sure those things are done and work to get those things done. So that's just an example. And as I mentioned before, they also have to produce that list in the next 3 months of all the officer names who may not be good witnesses in court, that have an integrity violation because of something they did, or if they told a lie, they will be on that list. So this is examples of exact things that we're going to end up doing in the next 2 months. And there's 2 slides of this. Next slide, please. We're going to look at the rules that guide when an officer is disciplined, when they get in trouble at work. We're going to look at those rules. We have already looked at those before, so it's time to follow up. It's been a couple of years to make sure that some of those things are actually changed. So that's something we'll do in the next 3 months. We're going to look at that bias-free policing, their entire system for doing that, both the training and the policy, to see what we can improve on there. So these are just some of the areas that are highlighted that you can expect them to see done in the next 3 months. So not only do we have to hold the police accountable, right, but the commission designing a plan, they have to hold themselves accountable to actually doing the work they said they're going to do. This is what they're telling the community they're going to produce. This is what they're telling the community they're going to work on. So this is what the community can hold them accountable to, right, is to actually produce the work on the timeline that they said they're going to produce it. Next slide. All right, so how do you get involved with that? First, you can get a copy of the work plan as you go out. You can go to our website at clecpc.org. Follow us on social media to see what we're talking about, where we're going to be at, what projects we're working on. Okay, you could sign up for emails if you like to get information that way. We have a robust listserv of several thousand people now that we send emails out to about meetings and policies we're working on, how we're getting feedback, what projects we're engaged in. And then the work groups. So some of those things in this project are called work groups, right? So if you're interested in like the bias-free policing work group or that surveillance work group, reach out to us and we'll get you at those meetings, and you'll actually be part of helping design that policy, right? You will be part of those conversations, and you will actually drive your ideas will help drive the work forward. So that's a very important thing, as we encourage the community to get involved in those work groups. Check with our website, see what the work group schedule is. If you can't find it there, reach out to us. But that's the ways you get involved with us. So thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope it was helpful. There's a lot more to our work plan than we covered, but that was just a very general overview of how this commission works, what they're going to do in the next year, so everybody understands where we're going, and it's not a mystery to anyone. For those who say, you know, what have you done? This is going to tell you what we are going to do and when we're going to have it done by. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. I would just like to ask Interim Director Goodrick, is there an age limit for who can participate on work groups?
To the chair, we've never had an age limit. It is preferred that if you're a youth, that you do have parental consent for that. It won't be a problem to get that, so we can work on an individual basis. But we also have avenues where if we're trying to engage with youth, we usually go through the school where there already is parental consent, and we make it part of your school experience when we do it that way. So if any of you, would like us to come to your classroom, if you think this is interesting, right, just reach out. And we even have one of our commissioners is Dr. John Adams, if you don't mind calling you out. He is a CMSD teacher, but he's more than that. He's very involved in mentoring. He's involved in the youth civics program. And it's not just exclusive to students who are in the Cleveland public schools. Dr. Adams, I'm sure, would be happy to have a conversation with anyone who's interested in getting this work that's a youth experience. So.
Okay, thank you. I would want to encourage all of the youth who are here tonight, if you feel that you want to have some input on the work that these police committees are doing, please reach out and let us know your interest. As has been expressed, we can come to the school, and work and share the roles that students can have in this process. But I think your voices are very important to the work that's being done. And so we would ask that you, if you hear anything that you're interested in, that you follow it up by letting us know, and we can see how we can actually have you serve on some of the work groups on these police committees. So thank you. We are down to the next 20 minutes of public comment. This is an opportunity for those of you in the audience here tonight to come to the mic and express your opinion or anything you want us to hear from you. Your voices are important to us. We would ask that you limit your input to 3 minutes. So you can just come to the mic, and I'm hoping that some of you, the students who have heard what you have heard so far tonight, especially in terms of your lived experience so far as young people, if you have something that you would like to share with us at the mic tonight, that you feel comfortable enough to step up and share that as well. So thank you. As you come up, if you would identify yourself by name so we know who you are, and that can be part of our minutes, and go right ahead and express yourselves.
Madam Chair Lady, this is Professor Gordon Friedman. Thank you. I'm Louis Katz. We were in your seats before you were appointed to the commission. We're here tonight to suggest to you that one of the most important factors that you can do in order to do what the police commission is supposed to do is to get yourself an independent lawyer. We're here to propose to you, suggest to you, that you ask the city for the funding for an independent lawyer. It's quite clear that conflict of interest exists. We wouldn't have thought there would be one at this point, but ever since you've been appointed to the office, the city has been interfering in what you can accomplish. So with humility, we suggest to you that you ask the law director to provide funds for you to select an independent counsel.
Excuse me, my only comments would be it's about your independence. You're supposed to be independent from the city. And whether you agree with the decision or not to select a director, executive director, and the mayor writes a superfluous letter of denial that has no substance at all, it is very clear that you need an advocate. And whether, again, if you agree or disagree with the choice, your independence is at stake, and you will lose it unless you have an independent advocate. We did what we did voluntarily and did it for many hours. You all have been given a lot of power, and you all are being paid. So that makes you a lot different than us, and it gives you power. But it seems to me that the city is successfully taking that away from you. That's all I have to say.
And you guys are lawyers.
Yes, we both teach law. Thank you.
Hello, commissioners. I'm Jennifer Blakeney, and I'm a resident of Collinwood neighborhood. And I am a member of SURGE, Showing Up for Racial Justice, the Northeast Ohio chapter. And we worked really hard towards having you here. So we're very glad to see a strong, powerful, and independent community police commission. As written into the city charter by the voice of the people of Cleveland. Tonight, I am asking you to demand that a real care response program is implemented in Cleveland. So the Adams Board is sending a closed RFP, that's request for proposals, to only frontline services that does not meet any of the recommendations made about how care response should operate. I ask each of you commissioners tonight to help our city create a care response program that includes meaningful services where trained mental health workers respond to 911 calls of mental health nature. I believe it is critical that members of our community can call for a crisis response in Cleveland where we won't be guilty of exacerbating our neighbor's crisis by calling police when unnecessary. I had such an occasion a year or two in my neighborhood. I was afraid to call 911 because the person of concern was a young black male. I called Frontline Services and they could not help me, but called emergency dispatch. I stayed in the area to make sure that police did not overreact and the person of concern was safe and treated with respect. Gratefully, EMS responded, not police, and the situation was quickly resolved. I don't know how favorably, but it was safely anyway. I would love to know that all my neighbors can be met with a nonviolent, health-centered approach to their crisis. I would love to not worry about police overreaction when me or my neighbors need help, not more fear. Care Response program is in place in various U.S. cities with excellent results when the following parameters are met: that dispatch care responders directly from 911 calls. The current recommendation is 988, and that takes a whole new community training. It includes certified peer responders, people with personal experience, that there's response at the scene of the crisis quickly, not someone you can call, not a hotline, but someone at the place of comfort for the individual in crisis, to minimize the intensity of the episode and to avoid the need for law enforcement interference or hospitalization. The responders need to be available 24/7. We need a commitment by the provider to ongoing learning, data transparency, and community engagement, rather than just connecting to existing services that are not immediate and or inadequate. Program planning that listens deeply to community needs is essential, and ongoing continued opportunity for community engagement and input. A community advisory board for the care response is necessary with representation by directly impacted community members. The RFP process right now the Adams Board is working on does not meet most of these best practices and will not meet the community's needs. I hope you all can help us work together toward a real care response program for Cleveland. I'd like to know that the committee, I guess the Behavioral Health Committee, is taking this on because the RFP is out there right now. So I'm hoping that you guys are on making sure this is something that really helps and benefits our community. So thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to us?
Hi, my name is Rosie Palfy. I wanted to echo the two former commissioners' comments about the need to have an independent lawyer. I don't understand why it took a month for the mayor to come back with that letter. It makes no sense to me. It just shows that they're trying to stall your work, your progress. And I wanted to echo the residents' concerns about care response. We had this conversation a little bit with Commissioner Van Leer when he was running the policy meeting last week. And unfortunately, the train has left the station. The Alcohol, Drug, Mental Health Board of Cuyahoga County is working with the City of Cleveland to create a care response with zero community input. There are numerous care response models. I spoke at a meeting the Adams Board had last week. Signal Cleveland did a story about it. And this isn't like a co-responder program. There's like a dozen different models, and you can't just pick up a model and drop it in Cleveland. The other thing I wanted to say was I watched the Adams Board full meeting today, and just so you know, state law says that the Adams Board is not statutorily required to do an RFP, but they talked about it, and they're moving forward with that. And I will say this, Tim Sommerfeld, thank God, was there from the EMS union, and he spoke and he talked about the need to have a paramedic as part of this team and not just a social worker and a peer support person. He explained medical considerations that come into play in all this, and he said, hey, we need a seat at the table. So I hope that you all have a seat at the table. Thank you.
The community's willpower is at stake. Everything the member of community wants to do, the city government, the city council would not like to share the resources or even the power. The commission right now, you are not the only one in this particular trouble. There are other things. We see the same problem. So in the past, some of the commissioners here actually was very adamant about certain things, then all of a sudden, they backed out. Then you have other commissioners really see the point of doing this work, actually step up. However, there's still no coherent working progress among all 13 of you. Care response is very important as an example. What is your position on that? Yes, Tuesday evening at the Cuyahoga County Council General Meetings, EMS went up there to complain because of the new county jail. However, they are the one having a union contract to say for them to come out in the community, they need a police because the community is so unsafe, so dangerous. They feel their lives could be in danger. So lots of things, people are very used to either be passive aggressive or they are strongly holding double standards. If you are doing the same, that will be no good. So from the very beginning, the conflict of interest between the commission and the mayor's office, it was an obvious thing. If you do not act now, when will you do something which the commission is really here for? Yes, we do understand this particular charter has a little bit flaws in there. In the community, we do have our voices. We want to fix it up. So please, you should not only just hang on there to have the title. You really have to do the work together. Otherwise, the ones who are only thinking his or her own ideologies, please leave. Thank you.
I will say as a young person myself that community engagement is crucial when you're doing things like this, because as an officer, how do you expect to police a community that you don't know or not familiar with? I believe that it's very important for officers to get to know their community and the people in it, because when you have connections like that, it reduces the outcome that, violent possibilities happen. And I also think it's important for you guys, all 13 of you, to get to know the community and, students and stuff too, because it allows them to, know how the process works, what they're doing, and, just get to talk to you guys in general. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you share your name with us for the record, please?
My name is Caleb Harmon, by the way. So.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So I think I might wrap us up unless somebody's coming behind me. But my name's Earl Ingram. I'm the club director here at the St. Louis Boys and Girls Club. So we want to say thank you for everybody for coming out today. I got some of my young leaders here from 10th grade all the way down to 7th. And we are very strategic. I am very strategic and specific about who I put them in front of and what engagement points we have. My hope for them tonight, and one thing we've been prepping for in preparation for you guys being here, is for it to be an authentic encounter, for them to get an opportunity to see you, put names and faces together, to hear and learn a little bit about the processes, but more importantly, to get them engaged at an early age and to hopefully restore a sense of hope in the system and the fact that we can try to impact it in a different way. So my desire, my pledge to you guys is to, I think, from what some of the community partners have shared before me, is for this panel, for this group, not to be politics as usual, because we've had enough of that. We've seen enough of that. We've felt enough of that. So in the seat you've been given, in the position that you've been given, and I've had an opportunity to meet some of you, work with some of you in different channels, we're just looking for something different. I had them come here tonight. I push them all the time. I'm challenging them so that they can get a different kind of output from what's happening. I don't want them to look at as young people and feel like their future is going to be grim and to have to constantly cringe at the thought of law enforcement or policies. I know many of us, including myself, have grown up under a dark shadow of that. My desire is that that looks different for them as it pertains into pursuing them in the future. I heard the conversation about Dr. Adams being in schools and opportunities for engagement there. I'm all for that. Obviously, I'm an out-of-school provider, but any interaction you guys have, it needs to be real and authentic. Sadly enough, oftentimes we need to remove the adults from the process. So, and I'll just be completely honest about that. So as you look to have engagement points, please don't show up for photo ops. Please don't show up in environments where the adults are boxing the kids out of the space. Anytime you see me in my community work, they'll be with me. And that's intentional because their voices are always shunned and pushed into the corner. Many of us have experienced that in our upbringings coming up, being involved in anything. Anything that has a titling of youth with it, and you can go out into a space and you don't see any youth there, that proof's already in the pudding. So as you look to engage community work, youth work, look to engage with partners who are serious about that work. Look to engage with partners who are representing those things. Not that places that have titles, schools, even community centers, even if it's another leg of my organization that's not putting youth first. I can't stress enough just the need for it to be authentic conversation and interactions, because without that, we will end up just creating the same cycle that we sadly are in now. I'll leave you guys with the fact that there is a youth policing policy that I have worked on. Taylor and Caleb were part of a group where we worked on that. There's a video short that you can see that's tied to that. There's actual print copies of that. We're looking to continue to push and get that integrated into a part of the training so that officers have a sense of what they need to do and change up when they're dealing with youth. And we just overall as a community, as an overall team, need to just do our best to make sure that we are pushing hard on those doors. So if you're in spaces, obviously, where I'm not, where they aren't, you need to have the same amount of passion and enthusiasm to advocate for them. And think about it as if it was your son, your daughter. I see a little one here today. Same future you want for him, I want for them. I want for myself, for anyone who's coming behind me. So we really have to push for that. We do not want the same cookie cutter, vanilla, run-of-the-mill processes that we've had. You guys have an amazing opportunity with what it is that you're doing. And I just implore you to use it responsibly, use it correctly, use it in a way that you can make true impact and change. And don't just have it be run-of-the-mill, because people are defeated by the process. We need to acknowledge that. We need to speak to that. We need to come up with some new processes as it comes to that. I lied, very last thing. If you're getting interference from our local officials, which, let's just be honest, that oftentimes that can be the case, I am in favor of trying to create some processes that make sure it's not hamstringing you guys, because people are defeated by looking at potentially a group of yourselves and knowing that you guys may have great heart to do the work, but are getting stifled by that. So let's work together. Let's utilize, work through processes so that we can remove the red tape so we can actually work for just impacting a greater Cleveland for these young people in the future.
You will be the last in this session to speak, but go ahead, please.
My name is Travis Hardy. I agree with Earl all the way. I feel like youth isn't in these type of events enough. So me being as youth, to be honest, I've never really got to experience any of this until I became a part of the Boys and Girls Club. So if y'all could just get youth into more stuff like this and just encounter with police officers and everything, just to engage with each other, because it's really nothing to it. Like, at least send out flyers, emails, or something, trying to get more youth involved into things like this.
Chair Ridgway, if I could just say one thing to our youth. We are starting a youth steering committee, which will last for about 1 to 3 months. It will be headed by Commissioner Dr. John Adams, and we invite you to be a part of that. So we are setting the groundwork for that as we speak, And when it becomes open, you will be the first persons to be invited to be a part of that process.
Thank you. We want to thank each of you who chose to share with us tonight your comments. Though your voices are very important to this work that we do, we need to hear from the entire community, young people as well as adults. And I can't, as a practice, we don't respond directly to comments that are shared at the mic. I do think it's important that we thank the fact that some of you shared your opinions, and we strongly encourage you to get involved in this work that we're doing, either through our committee work groups or just by sharing your thoughts with us. We will be looking at every comment that was made today or tonight, and we will consider those comments in some context or another. We have someone who's working with MBRAC now as a liaison from this commission and is actively engaged. We have work groups that will allow anybody from the community to sign up and say, I want to be engaged, in the work that a particular committee is doing. And I think that this is a great opportunity to hear the voices of young people. I think we recognize your importance to this work. We recognize your importance to this community, and nothing is more important than hearing your voices and make sure that our responses to you are as authentic as your input to us. So we do appreciate all the comments that came to us tonight. Thank you. For those of you who may not know, this commission has two chairs, two co-chairs, Co-Chair Rodriguez and me, Co-Chair Ridgway. And when we started this process and the chairs were elected, we didn't quite know how all of this was going to work out. It was a new experience for both of us, but I think we have been able to complement each other very, very well. We definitely work all the time to see how we can be a responsive unit to the commission and to this community that we are charged to serve. We each give a co-chair report. It won't be very long. We will start with Co-Chair Rodriguez, and I end it with my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just like the public to know that our leadership meeting minutes was submitted for 9/19 to the full commission, and it reviewed a few items. Just to let the public know, the consent decree conference status is 10/25 at 3 p.m. at the Stokes Courthouse. Another item of business was the attendance audit. It was submitted to the mayor as requested by the Rules Committee and Interim Executive Director. Item number 3 was the full CPC calendar. Please, all committees, subcommittees, work groups, submit days and times so that we can ensure that we're not conflicting with any dates or times, and it minimizes any confusion. Also, we have a police wellness survey that Ms. Williams is helping to pass out through the partnership with Akron University. Please feel free to complete that and pass it on to your networks.
From my position, we have been engaged in reviewing the draft status report of the for the consent decree hearing. The interim director, Goodrick, Co-Chair Rodriguez, and myself, we had an opportunity to review that draft report and send our comments back to the federal monitors. That would be part of what would be shared at the October 25th meeting. We encourage the public to come out to that meeting in the Stokes Courthouse to hear. This will be done before Federal Judge Oliver, and this is an opportunity to hear the status of the consent decree mandate. So that would be October 25th at 3 p.m. at the Stokes Courthouse. We have also been engaged in hiring a shared attorney, and I think that Goodrich Director Goodrich will share some comments about that during his report. We had an opportunity to go to the University of Akron on Friday and meet with the staff there, the researcher, the coder, and different ones there who will be preparing the final report for the trauma series that was an amazing success this past spring and early summer. I think we're all looking forward to the results of that report. I think that this is an opportunity. There's still an opportunity for even our young people to share your impressions about police trauma. And I think, Shelley, we have some surveys on the table outside, so I would encourage anybody here tonight to pick up a survey, fill it out. We still have time to get your input into the final report that will be coming out soon. And then finally, we have been working on the grant report, and that will be shared a little bit more thoroughly when Commissioner Adams gives his report a little bit later in this meeting. So, Executive Director Goodrich.
Okay, so a little bit different report this time around. This report is for commissioners on, we have two sides of the house here. These are the commissioners, and then you also have the staff who works for the commissioners. They're full-time, all the time working, where commissioners have other jobs, often have other jobs, and they are not in the office every day. The staff are in the office every day. So that's the difference between the two sides of the house here. And so as part of my job, I have to report to all the commissioners of what's been happening with the staff and what is going on with the staff during this month period. But before I do that, I do want to say there was something that I missed that's extremely important and relevant to the majority of our audience tonight, which is the youth. In 2020, the previous commissioners, not this group, did a groundbreaking policy in the city of Cleveland. What the commission did, and we have one commissioner here from that legacy commission, Mr. Richard Jackson, who's behind us, and two more you heard speak were part of this process. This commission led the drive to create the first policy for how the Cleveland Division of Police interacts with youth in the city of Cleveland. There are copies of that policy outside. Like all policy, it's open for feedback all the time, right? So you are able to reach out to the commission and say, hey, we really like this, we don't like this, or even if you're experiencing things that are outside of that policy, let us know. But I just wanted to make that point that we did bring copies of that this evening, and the previous commission worked really, really hard to make sure that youth have a specific way that the police deal with them in their job. Yeah. Great. I just wanted to make sure everyone was here, is aware of that. So outstanding. So the next, going into our report here, I talk about the budget, typically the money that we've been spending. Right now we are on track to close out the budget by November 1st. So any items that you wish to purchase or procure needs to be in as soon as possible in this year's budget. On top of that, we are beginning the budget cycle for 2024. It starts, and I've briefed Chair Adams of the Budget Committee on this already. It starts by simply submitting a very baseline budget, and then the Office of Budget Management will add all the cost of living. They'll do market adjustments to that budget. They'll do salary adjustments based on any raises or contractual obligations. So that's the very first step in the process before it comes back to you all for review. I have visited each committee. I have requested anybody who would like to do anything in 2024, if they work with me or contact me. So far, no one has. So our budget being submitted is pretty much the same budget that we have right now. And just as a point, we haven't even spent all the money that we had allotted this year. So we should have no problems with the budget that we have. But it's not too late, because when this comes back, if there is something special that needs to be added, we can still make the push under our independent budgetary authority to try to get that through, right? So not too late to come up with any project that you know needs to happen in 2024, but need to start working with staff on that as soon as possible. Hiring. Since our last meeting, we have added our wonderful administrative assistant, Miss Janita Thomas. She's in the back there. So many of you may know her already. She's been with the City of Cleveland for quite some time. She was in Ward 7, and then she was with us previously. So she did 4 years with the CPC, almost 4 years, before she went to Ward 1 to be the executive assistant, and now she's back with us. So we're happy to have Ms. Thomas back. She's a wonderful asset to the CPC and very knowledgeable. And our other job that was posted, we have wrapped up joint interviews with the Department of Law. The interview committee consisted of myself and Jan Ridgway as representatives from the CPC, and then 2 representatives from the Office of Law who will be working with this individual as well. And we're excited. We think we have an outstanding candidate to help us with some of our legal needs. So we are moving to finalize an offer as quickly as we can to this individual who's gone through 2 rounds of interviews at this point. So it shouldn't be much longer. Should they accept, we will have a attorney who will be putting in, at least to start, a dedicated 20 hours with the commission a month. Now, we've already had preliminary discussions about what the future holds with that, and this commission is a trial and error, right? So if there's anything comes up with this or it's problematic, everyone in that group, including the law department, is open to making a change if a change is necessary. So remember, this is a new thing. We're trying something out. If it runs into some hiccups, everybody knows that it may need to be adjusted or renegotiated, or the attorney may have to come over 100% of the time if the work demands it. So, but it's a start, and it's what our budget allowed. And then finally, we do have a letter that was sent to the mayor regarding the RISE initiative and concerns brought to our attention about additional law enforcement operating inside the city of Cleveland, including the Ohio State Patrol, Cuyahoga County Sheriffs, and other federal agencies. It came from Commissioner, the Chair Van Leer of the Policy Committee in conjunction with the Policy Committee. And so we had a lengthy request to the Division of Police regarding that. We also had a meeting with Dr. Anderson, who's present today, to talk a little bit about that coming. And so far, we have had a positive reception to that. We asked for a lot of things, so we expect that it will take a little bit of time for them to gather it. But yesterday, we picked up the first batch of things, and I'm happy to report that almost everything we've asked for from the city proper has been successful in being able to do that, and we have had no problems or hurdles with obtaining information the way we're supposed to. And I do give Dr. Anderson great credit for facilitating that, and her team for helping out with that to get us the information we need in a timely manner. So thank you for that, and that's the report.
So the meeting is now open to receive committee status reports, and we will begin according to the agenda with the Internal Training Committee with Commissioner Garrett Ferguson, and after that, we'll just go down. You don't have anything to report? Okay, so there's no report from on the Internal Training Committee. We will go to Budget and Grants Committee, which is a standing committee by Commissioner Adams.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So this report will primarily focus on the grants. I think there's a lot of questions about them, about where we are in the process and sort of why maybe things have kind of taken a little bit longer than what we expected. So currently we have all of the grants that were submitted, all of the grants that qualified, that submitted all their materials. They have been reviewed by 2 commissioners each. So the scores have been submitted through our rubric. And sort of where we are now is, as we were going through the process, I had some questions about sort of if the process that we had in place was in a nutshell, if it was legal. And so I reached out to the legal department to get some guidance on sort of where we were. And what we learned was that clearly we're beholden to the City of Cleveland laws and the charter, but we were also beholden to the state of Ohio's laws. And so according to the state of Ohio, there are some things in place that we had to consider. So that is regarding sort of conflicts of interest that commissioners may have with potential like grant applications, and then the recusals that would have to follow as a result. So for some time, we have gone through a process where we started with the commissioners. Currently, we have 8 commissioners who will be reviewing grants. And we started with the 8 commissioners who were reviewing, going through conflict of interest forms and recusals, and then it was suggested that we have the full commission do conflict of interest and recusals. So that sort of paused us for a minute, because based on those forms and those conflicts, it kind of shapes who we can grant money to, who we can grant the city funds to. And so we are at the point where the majority of the commissioners have spoken with the law department. So we submitted conflict of interest forms, and then we also set up individual interviews, because what the law department discovered was that commissioners were over-recusing themselves from grants. And so the legal department walked each of us individually through sort of the conflicts we listed. And then for the majority of the commissioners, there were way fewer conflicts than what they had thought. So we are at the point where everything is scored. I think we have maybe a few more commissioners, 1 or 2 that need to talk to the legal department. But as that is happening, we are organizing the interviews. So over the next couple of weeks, it kind of depends on the availability of the interviewees for the grants, but we are planning to interview. There will be 2 commissioners interviewing potential grantees. The staff is helping us to organize those, and we will, what we are planning is that the end of the first week in October, maybe early in the second week in October, we should have everything completed. And then we will be ready to vote on the grants. Tentative dates for that meeting is October 10th, 11th, or 12th, depending on the availability of commissioners. October 12th. And we are allowed to do that meeting digitally so that we can pass the grants. And then once we pass the grants as a commission, we will send those grantees applications to the legal department. And Stephanie Melnick, who's an assistant law director, has been working with us. We have a draft of the contracts, but they will be catered to the individual grantees. And at that point, we will draft the contracts. We will get them to the awardees, and they will sign them. And that is where we are in the process. So it's been, an experience, a learning experience, but we have to be in compliance with the law. And I don't think anybody on the commission wants to break the law. I don't think anyone else wants us to break the law. So it was just, some things that we had to learn, and we could not move forward until we knew if there were conflicts, because if there were conflicts, then we broke the law. And that's our responsibility to know what the law is. So that's just where we are. We initially set a November 1st deadline, and I still think that we will meet that deadline, and if we don't meet that deadline, it will be pretty close to it. So we initially set it November 1st, and we are still on track for that. Thank you.
I just want to add to Commissioner Adams' report. The corrected date is October 11th for the special meeting where the final grants will be presented to the full commission, or at least those who can participate to vote and approve those grants. And just as an explanation for our audience, what we meant by recusals, if any of us have a legal conflict with a particular grant that we have been assigned to review, we have to file recusals to say that these are the grants. I may have been on a board of a particular applicant. I may have been involved in the incorporation of a particular applicant. There are several different things that we could be a business associate, on the board. So if there are any instances when an applicant has been assigned to me and I have a conflict, I need to have filed a recusal form that says that I am in conflict with this particular applicant and I cannot score that application. And then that would have to be assigned to somebody else who's scoring applications. So it's a measure that will make this process as transparent as possible, keep it as legal as possible, and it would allow those of us who may be involved with an application, or the people who submit an application, will prevent us from actually reviewing those grants. But somebody else on the commission will be able to, but we can't. And so that's where we are with this process. I think all of us to date who have been involved and will be involved, we have submitted those recusal forms, and as Commissioner Adams said, most of us were overly cautious. We recused ourselves from a whole lot of applicants that we really didn't have to, because there were no legal reasons according to state law for us to be able to do that. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to explain what the recusal process was and why we had to submit our recusals in order to make this grant scoring process as openly legal as possible. So thank you. The next person would be Commissioner Wong on the Rules Committee.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for sticking in there with us. So I'm the chair of the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee at this point, as you all know, we're making rules to enforce across and to affect certain behaviors that we are, allow us basically more positively to work collaboratively together. Obviously, there's 13 people here. We have differences of opinion at times. And as you all know, working in teams sometimes, if there are not a set of ground rules that everybody believes in and is willing to enforce and uphold themselves to, it can get a little bit chaotic. So the only report from the Rules Committee right now is that we are we're supposed to revise our rules every year and take another look at them. But since we've lived in our rules for about the last 8 months, we've seen certain types of things come out from the rules. And we are just in the process right now of tightening the rules up. I do not believe that this is an indication of the lack of clarity of rules. As you sometimes know, you make a rule and then you live out those rules and you realize, maybe that there are better ways to affect the outcomes and behaviors that you want. So we are in active, very intense rewriting, refining, and improvement of the rules. And I know that for the young people out there, I know that the Rules Committee seems very banal, but I can assure you that it is very important to the working of any organization. So if you ever get a chance to participate in the writing of values and rules, I would encourage you to. And then, so we will be actively writing, and I've asked the entire committee to sincerely look at our past and see what rules have been broken. It's not an attempt at punishment, but it's as an attempt at enlightening ourselves as to what behaviors that we would like to better improve so we can collaborate together, because it's a general agreement that probably in the midst of changing rules, you need to reflect upon the past rules. So that's the only update I have. We will have probably some drafts ready of Section 1, hopefully by the next meeting, and for approval by the committee. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Van Leer.
Thank you, Chair Ridgway. So yes, we have had, since our last full commission meeting, we had a policy committee meeting, and we discussed the framework and looked at that to make sure that it was what we wanted to continue. We got some feedback from the community related to it, and so we looked at that and made sure we were aligning our work with what the community had said they wanted. We have, as Director Goodrick mentioned before, we have a surveillance technology committee, or work group rather, and I think there was an email sent out to that larger group, which is a couple of Commissioner Wong and Commissioner Garrett Ferguson, as well as members of the community, and so that looks like that email is pending, and they're getting ready to set up a meeting. The Behavioral Health and Crisis Intervention work group is headed by Commissioner Benito and Commissioner Early, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. Sorry, slight brain malfunction there. There's been some initial conversations on the work group and pulling together a larger group, and that should be happening pretty soon. And that, to the comments before about non-police care response, that work group is focused, at least in part, on that aspect of public safety in Cleveland. Finally, the only other update that I think I have, I was able to attend this Cleveland City Council Safety Committee meeting this morning, and at that meeting, there were 4 people from the law enforcement agencies that are working with the Cleveland Division of Police who were in attendance and talking to that safety committee of council members about the work that they've been doing in Cleveland. They had Colonel Charles Jones, who's the superintendent of the Ohio State Police, Cuyahoga County Sheriff Harold Patel, the U.S. Marshal for the Northern District of Ohio, Pete Elliott, and Deputy Chief Ali Pillow from the Cleveland Division of Police. So that was an informative meeting this morning to some degree. And that would be it, unless members of our committee have more to add.
All right, hello everyone again. So the Police Training Committee, as ED Director Goodrick discussed, we are in the process of planning a public forum, like a community event for the use of force, where the police will be literally performing their use of force training in front of the community for feedback. The 2 commissioners who have been leading that work group are Commissioner Chura and Donaldson. So we are currently at the point where we have submitted the staff, Shelley Williams submitted she created a plan for the event, and Commissioners Donaldson and Chura met with Commander Magooth, Lieutenant Smith, regarding the plan, and then I also met with them to kind of discuss sort of what that event would look like. So we are tentatively planned for October, but there's been some like personal matters with one of the people that we're working with, and so it's looking like that might be like November. But we're at the point where the police have a proposal. We have discussed the event, and so it's just a matter of logistics of, the proposal is essentially made it up to like the the deputy chief. And we are in the process of just laying out sort of like to get the police to, because a lot of the logistics of the event depend on the police, so we have to find, it'll be on a Saturday, but we have to find a time where we can get the proper amount of police that we need for the event. And then once we get the date, we have to get the venue. And so it's just a logistical thing. So we're working with the police, but there will be a use of force event. And from my conversations with them, it seems like we want to pilot it. So we're talking about maybe an event the size of maybe 75 people to start. And the police were suggesting that if that goes well, that we can grow that to maybe even like 150. So they're excited about it, about doing it. And we'll use this as sort of like a blueprint and a pilot. And then the idea is that these will become regular events, and that they will happen with the bias-free training, they will happen with the search and seizure training. And so that is the event that we're kind of honing on and focusing on right now. And in terms of our framework and what we're thinking about in the future, the early part, the first quarter of 2024, we're gonna focus on the bias-free policing. And we will continue to work with the Police Training Review Committee to essentially overhaul the training and to review all the documents. So that's sort of like a longer term plan for what we're planning to do for the rest of this year, and then what we're planning to focus on for perhaps the first half of 2024.
The chair again would like to encourage our youth to participate in these training opportunities, especially for use of force. These are training sessions that you need to be aware of as part of the public, and look at, pay attention to the website, our website. When those dates and times will be announced, it would be a simulated training where you can actually get a chance to see how police engage with residents in terms of use of force. And I think that's very important for our young people to engage in this process. So I just want to strongly encourage you to, to participate in those training opportunities. This is the Police Accountability Committee with Commissioner Wong, please.
Hi again, thank you. The Police Accountability Committee, as Mr. Goodrick has already explained, we were finalizing our framework, and he shared with you a few of the projects we're working on, and we thank also the public for the feedback on the framework. The two major projects we're engaged in are first the Brady Giglio work group, and as Mr. Goodrick explained, that is to create a list of officers whose behavior makes them impeachable or removable as witnesses, unreliable as witnesses. This group, like the other work group, discipline work group, requires a lot of legal kind of help. So if any people that are, if any of you are interested in the legal profession, understanding what is kind of the nitty gritty, it's usually not arguing in court, it's doing a lot of research, understanding cases, understanding how to evaluate and analyze, I would encourage you to participate or just observe on the work group if you feel inclined. So we are basically getting together both of those work groups. It has been a little bit challenging because we need to get the right legal minds on that. Not to suggest that common sense from community members and young people is not required, but we definitely need a lot of legal support on those groups. So we're still finalizing the memberships of those groups. The discipline work group, I do want to explain, because accountability means more than just discipline, right? Accountability is everything that you do to keep someone, an officer, like good at their job and responsible for their job. The discipline is hopefully the last step. You don't want to get to that point. You want the officer to be able to do their job effectively and also constitutionally and collaboratively with the community. But the discipline work group is looking at the actual system of discipline. It's not going to be pointing out specific officers, but looking at the patterns of how officers are disciplined. Are they getting equal discipline? Is it appropriate discipline? So if you're interested in kind of looking at an entire system and trying to figure out what's right about it and what's wrong about it. That would be an interesting work group for you to participate or engage with. And then the last thing that we're doing right now, we had to postpone our meeting because in addition to sharing the framework, we're making some flow charts because even for some of the commissioners and Mr. Goodrick and the staff, it is a very complicated process as to how a citizen or an internally discovered discipline problem is reported, right? So we want to make it easy. It's a lot of our policy analyst, Ryan Walker, has with one of my actual students. So he's in high school and he was able to look through all these documents and put all these words into a chart and into a pictorial form so that the community can better understand how one would go about reporting. I think for the community's perspective, if you had an interaction with an officer that you didn't feel went as well or went as well as you think it should, that you do have rights to report through OPS and the CPRB. And I would encourage, because you guys, I imagine you have a lot of interactions just like we do, but possibly more because you're not always in cars and situations like that. It would be a good thing for any of you to give us input on what is not clear about that, what could work better, since we have oversight over all of those kind of disciplinary bodies. So I just would encourage anybody that has any amount of interest, don't be dissuaded by the fact that it's a room full of adults and a room full of lawyers. I assure you we have very kind, because these are lawyers that volunteer their time, very kind lawyers that are very passionate about social justice and making changes in the system so it's safer for everybody in the community. I would encourage you to reach out to me or any of the other chairs of committees if you want to participate. Thank you.
The Outreach Committee.
Hello, everyone. So the updates for the Outreach Committee are as follows. Commissioner Kennedy, who is working on our survey work group, has reported that she has reached out to the chairs of the various committees and asked for their input on topics related to the survey, and she's currently awaiting that feedback. Also, she plans on meeting with members of the city to work on talks and discussions related to a bidding process for a firm that can help with administering the survey. Also, we have our CPC staff currently working on our completing and strengthening our outreach plan draft, and we hope to have that completed by the end of October. So also, I wanted to also thank a community member and a expert messaging strategist, Kayla Pincus. She's a community member that has been trying to help us in our efforts to strengthen and get our outreach committee off the ground. So thank you, Kayla, for that. And I also want you all to know that we are currently accepting people from the community to help us work in these work groups. So if you are interested in helping out the outreach committee, contact the CPC or myself or both, and we are looking forward to working with you all. Thank you.
So we want to thank each of the commissioners for their reports. Again, we want to encourage the community, if you are interested in any of these areas where committees are working, please feel comfortable to sign up to work with these committees in their work groups. Share your input so that when the results for these commissions are published, your voice will be represented there. And it is our work, our intent is that the work that is done by each of these committees will be such that it will improve relations between the police and the community. So we really need your input. We want to hear your voices, and we would strongly encourage you to participate in this process as we work through it. Check the website because the frameworks are listed there, and you can see where you think you could most appropriately, or where you would most appropriately fit, and then get in contact with us and we'll go from there. So thank each of you for sharing updates, and we will go to old business, and a motion has been asked to put on the agenda regarding conflict of interest and the executive director's nomination. So Commissioner Wong.
Thank you so much. So just to give a little bit of background about this motion, on June 14th, we voted as a commission for Mr. Jason Goodrick, who you've seen to be our full executive director of the commission. Unfortunately, on it was 6 weeks later, the mayor rejected our nomination. And so he is disagreeing with our decision. And this motion is to highlight the fact that when two parties are in disagreement about something, they cannot basically be represented by the same attorney. So I'm going to read the motion into the record. This motion was already made in kind of a more spontaneous manner at a previous meeting. So this doesn't negate that motion, but we thought for the sake of expediency and clarity that we will remake the motion. So if you'll bear with me, we're going to read this written motion now. So it's the motion regarding conflict of interest and engagement of outside counsel. Whereas the Commission's charter grants the Commission the power to, quote, engage outside legal services at Department of Law expense when the Commission determines in its discretion that there is a conflict of interest between the Commission's mission and representation from the Department of Law, unquote. Whereas the charter is clear that the determination of a conflict of interest between the Commission's mission and representation from the Department of Law rests within the discretion of the Commission. Whereas on June 14th, 2023, the board voted for Jason Goodrick to be executive director of the Commission, and on July 20th, 2023, Mayor Bibb purported to reject Goodrick's nomination. Whereas the charter provides that, quote, the Commission will nominate its executive director to be appointed by the mayor, unquote. Whereas a dispute has arisen between the Commission and the mayor over the mayor's authority to reject the Commission's nominee for executive director, and whereas the Department of Law is advising both the Commission and the mayor on this issue. Now, therefore, I move the Commission to do the following. Number one, determine that a conflict of interest exists between the Commission's mission and representation from the city's Department of Law on the question of the authority of the mayor to reject the Commission's nominee for the executive director position. 2, engage outside counsel at Department of Law's expense on this issue. And 3, delegate to an ad hoc committee consisting of Commissioners Kyle Early, Pete Van Leer, and Terry Wong, with additional assistance from Charles Donaldson Jr., the authority to seek out and review potential lawyers' firms to advise the Commission on the issue identified above and report to the full board with a recommendation, at which time the board will consider the matter and vote whether to engage the counsel suggested by the ad hoc committee. So that is my motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, so the motion has been made and properly second. It was a very lengthy motion. I won't repeat it, but it will go into the record. And so at this point, the floor is open for discussion. Is there any discussion regarding the motion? Okay, so as the chair rules that this discussion regarding the approval of the motion, if it is approved, that this motion, that discussion would not take place at the table initially. It will come back to the table once, it has passed tonight, but we will discuss a process for doing this. How this is done in leadership. I would just like to caution, the chair would like to caution that a committee or that members of this commission cannot self-establish a committee to interview or select an attorney, And the members of this committee can also not self-appoint themselves to a committee, especially if it's considered an ad hoc committee. If so, that ad hoc committee can only be appointed by a chair. So I just wanted to caution us about this. I also want to put on the table for this discussion something that we have distributed to each commissioner, as well as made available to the public. If you were able to pick up a copy of this, it's headed Teresa Beasley. Attorney Beasley is one of the top public law attorneys not just in the city of Cleveland, but in the country. She has ruled on the legitimacy of the mayor to reject the decision regarding a permanent ED, and she has mentioned case law that supports this decision, and the lack of a statute to say that the mayor shall appoint. That particular language that is missing from the statute, according to this legal opinion, gives the mayor the right to reject that opinion, or reject that nomination that comes from the commission. I just want to put this out here as something that needs to be part of the discussion at the time the vote is taken. Do we have any other discussions regarding this, motion? Yeah.
To the chairs, I just have a quick question. The third point is about this committee. So say if we pass this, does it pass in its entirety? Are we amending it so that the proper process for appointing an ad hoc committee will? I'm just trying to figure out so I have clarity on what I would be voting on. If what you're saying is that we cannot, that commissioners can't self-appoint into a committee, then if we vote yes on this, then that means we're passing everything that's here, correct?
At this point, unless you want to make an amendment, because it's been presented as that full motion.
I do want to address 2 points. Ms. Beasley's opinion does not serve as an opinion for this commission because it was solicited by Citizens for a Safer Cleveland. I'm still not clear after asking Law Director Griffin why it was sent to the commission. I am not a lawyer, but I do not believe that the footnote contained in her document addresses the adverse conflict of interest that we are in. And also, respectfully, Co-Chair, we're not here to litigate, because we're not attorneys, to litigate and give our opinion about the mayor's letter, a legal opinion. The primary purpose of this motion is to reestablish the conflict of interest that was already established in our previous motion, and based on that conflict of interest that we are allowed to engage for outside counsel. I do also want to put into the record that Ms. Beasley is a bond attorney, and an attorney that we spoke to does not believe that she personally authored this opinion. Ms. Beasley also served as a member of the mayor's transition team, and it is unclear to me whether her firm, McDonald Hopkins, exists in a conflict in the sense that they do work for the city. This was an issue that was mentioned by numerous attorneys that the ad hoc committee spoke to, is that they wish to serve as the outside attorney for this commission, but would not be able to do so because they do business with the city. So I guess I am a little bit concerned as to what we are doing here. Beyond that, I do want to know for the youth in the audience, would anybody like to guess who becomes the mayor if the mayor is out of town? And the answer is Mr. Mark Griffin, the law director. And since the mayor is in disagreement with us, I don't understand how Mr. Griffin can serve as a reasonable attorney for two parties that are in conflict.
Okay.
Yeah. To the chair, I was wondering if I could get some clarification about whether we are based on the motion that the search process with the ad hoc committee is going to be re-vetting candidates. My understanding is that the ad hoc committee has already vetted a candidate, Mr. Wallach, and in an email from Commissioner Wall mentioned that this attorney would be recommended to us for tonight for approval. So I guess my concern is that I would like us to be able to move through this process so that we can get the advice of the attorney so that we can continue our work on the issue of conducting a search process for the executive director. And so my suggestion would be that we change this motion to what was suggested in the email, which is to recommend for approval Mr. Wallach, who was vetted by the members of the ad hoc committee, and also his information was shared with us, and I know several commissioners did call him and ask him some questions as well. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And from my understanding of that vetting, a conversation occurred, and he stated that the charter reads as such. So from my understanding, this is hearsay. So if there's any commissioner that would like to speak up about the process and what has transpired, and what has said, that there will be a difference in opinion. So.
I again, please caution you to operate on hearsay. There were two, I'm speaking, thank you. There is ambiguity in the, I think that is an open secret about the appointment authority of Mr. Goodrick, but there are other clauses in that charter that have not been looked at. I do want to say that I'm a little bit concerned, Co-Chair Ridgway, why you're questioning this process, since it was the process delineated by Law Director Griffin in an email to us, and there was nothing in that email and process that suggested that we cannot do steps concurrently. And it has been since June 14th that we have been in an adverse position with the mayor on this, or sorry, I guess July 20th, in adverse position with the mayor. Whether there's an issue of the appointment, it is, I will say, it is very clear from every single attorney that I have spoken to directly that there is, that I'm finishing my sentence, that there is a conflict of interest. And that conflict of interest necessitates an outside counsel. Mr. Griffin, though I've asked a number of times for him to fulfill his ethical legal duty to tell us whether he is in conflict, has not done so, but I would think that having Ms. Beasley send an opinion in his stead would suggest that he believes that there is a conflict of interest. So until we establish a conflict of interest, there are other issues. I mean, my point is, if you know that there's a lawyer advising you and there's a conflict of interest, you have to deal with that first before you deal with the other legal issues. So there is ambiguity in that statement. There are other supremacy clauses, non-interference clauses in the charter. You understand? So I would second Ms. Benito's motion to amend and add the fact that we will, in addition to voting for Articles 1 through 3, we will be voting in one single motion to approve the Mr. Mark Wallach, who used to be the chief litigator of the city and defended the city against the CPPA on the Vanguard's case. So he has multiple levels of experience as our outside counsel.
Oh, okay.
Is that what you, I'm sorry, is Ms. Benito did, was that what you had intended?
Hold on one second. Let me just make sure that we understand what Commissioner Benito has raised, the issue you have raised. And it was the same issue, I believe, that was raised by Commissioner Adams, whether we are in fact approving this entire motion as it has been presented, and or whether, because they have already set this ad hoc committee up, they have already begun to interview, that's in conflict with what's being put on the table tonight. That's a conflict.
What is the conflict?
The conflict is that you had sent an earlier message to us saying that you had established an ad hoc committee. The rules say that you cannot self-establish nor self-appoint. You established the ad hoc committee, you self-appointed yourself and 2 other commissioners to that ad hoc committee. You interviewed already. This does not, you've already interviewed someone, you have already tentatively chosen an attorney, and as I understand it, that attorney has agreed with Attorney Beasley on the right of the mayor to reject that nomination because the language of the statute is not clear. It does not say that the mayor must appoint the nominee. It does not say the mayor shall appoint the nominee, which means that the mayor has the right, according to the legal opinion of the attorney that you interviewed, as well as Attorney Beasley, that the mayor has the right to reject that nomination. So I think the question that is on the table right now is whether this motion will move forward with this last comment regarding the ad hoc committee. When you have already established it, you have already interviewed, and now you're asking us to approve something after the fact. So I see a couple of other hands on the table, so let me hear from Commissioner Garrett Ferguson, so another hand, and Commissioner Adams, before we call for the question. We'll come back on this end. Yeah, go ahead.
He was first.
So I guess I just have some concerns about how us voting on this motion is going to conflict with state law, because from my understanding, those words, which is really what we're arguing about, is those words in the city charter, appoint and nominate. It seems that the state of Ohio has already issued guidance on how that is to be interpreted, and the state of Ohio has also given guidance on processes of nomination, especially in regards to executive branches throughout the state. So I'm just kind of confused on that. And then secondly, it seems we got an outside opinion by a public interest law firm. It seems that Attorney Beasley has a lot of experience working in municipalities because she previously worked as a law director for Warrensville Heights Law Department, but also who is going to be paying for this other law firm that it seems that there has already been interviews taking place for. And then on top of that, are we able to even select a law firm? Because it was my understanding that the compensation for the law firm is to be paid at the expense of the city when there is a conflict of interest that exists. We already have one, so now if there's another law firm, where does that money come from? Does that take away from our budget and our ability to do work in the community and host community events because we're spending money on another attorney's opinion?
So since you have spoken once, let me acknowledge Commissioner Van Leer, and then we'll come back to you, if that's okay. Commissioner Van Leer.
I actually just have a point of order for us. I think given the contentious nature of this issue, I think we should follow formal Robert's Rules of Order and not address each other and consider how many times each commissioner speaks. I mean, which would be, according to official Robert's Rules, that's twice, and with special permission needed to speak a third time. So I really think that would help diffuse this a bit so that we can just talk directly to the chair and not address each other, because then we get into that contentious and more emotional place. I do think that for my comment, you know, that the charter, from my understanding, gives us the discretion to ask for this, and the opinion that's already been given was not requested by the commission, as Commissioner Wong said. So I think to the chair, I think we need to really consider that question. I think all of us should consider that, and I think another point in Robert's Rules, again reverting to that, is like we should be cautious not to repeat ourselves or each other, and just really address you, Commissioner Chair Ridgway, and keep in mind that we need to act with decorum and have a reasonable, meaningful discussion and not belabor the points if they've already been made.
Just a point of clarification, Robert's rules, the rules do not prevent a member of the commission from speaking more than once, but they can come back when other people who have raised their hands and want to make a comment have that opportunity to speak. I think I was with you when that rule was clarified. So I see, Commissioner Chura, would you like to make a comment?
Thank you. To the Chair, Teresa Beasley was once a city law director. She also worked for under Frank Jackson. She was appointed to review sex crimes and child abuse cases with the Anthony Soul missing persons. So she has an affiliation with the city, and that's why I think we need somebody independent. She's constantly doing stuff for the city, and I think no matter who we pick, we could kick that can down for the next meeting, but we should have someone that's independent, no matter what the cost might be.
Just a response, the law department has already rendered a decision according to charter that once a conflict has been identified, that an attorney can be selected, and they have already agreed to pay for that outside legal, just for clarification. The issue right now is as far as the motion that has been put on the table, whether some of this has already taken place before it has come to the table and to this full commission for approval. I see Commissioner Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Just a few flags that I have on this motion, sections 1 through 3. Flag number 1, determine that a conflict of interest exists. Well, that would be for attorney to decide, not for, if we don't have a lawyer on this commission, then that's not really something we can decide now, can we? Number 2, engaging outside counsel at the Department of Law's expense. I think there's a little, there are multiple trains moving at the same time. We have a conversation about Mr. Wallach. We have a conversation about an attorney that we're gonna hire for 20 hours, and I think that we need to think about, before we vote, the fact that we have like multiple attorneys being interviewed by different people on the commission, which I think is not ideal and is a huge problem. And then number 3, I think it's pretty clear that the ad hoc committee, that saying delegate to an ad hoc committee consisting of Commissioners Early, Van Leer, and Wong with additional assistance from Donaldson, the authority to seek out and review. That's already happened, and I'm also not clear that that's within the rules either. So I think that there are flags on each and every point in this motion, and it's something for all of us to consider. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who want to make a comment? Any commissioner?
Excuse me, it's really it's very good.
So as each person speaks, make sure part of it.
Chair, I have a point of clarification, not comment. There's errors.
Excuse me, you're out of order.
Chair.
You haven't been recognized by the chair.
I'm asking for recognition, and there's a point of clarification, which does not go into my comment period. Ms. Kennedy may not be, may I speak? Ms. Kennedy may not be aware that the reason why these 3 people, Mr. Van Leer, Mr. Early, and I that were chosen for this ad hoc committee was because Mr. Early and I were already in a meeting with you and Co-Chair Rodriguez with the law director discussing this very issue. Mr. Van Leer has also been trying to engage with trying to get legal, more legal input. Sorry, and then Mr. Donaldson was brought in because Mr. Van Leer and Mr. Early and I are in a quorum, and Mr. Donaldson has recruiting experience and he interviewed with us. I am trying to understand that I don't think anywhere it says that an ad hoc committee can only be established by co-chairs. If the commission decides to establish this ad hoc committee, I think it's perfectly legitimate And I'm just struggling to understand why we are delaying, again, another month potentially, unless we agree to have a special meeting as to the hiring of an attorney based on conflict of interest. And I do want to correct you, Ms. Kennedy, it's not correct. It says in the charter that's in our discretion. In addition, in the law, it says that it's not like a blood test. If a client feels that their position cannot be properly advocated by an attorney, they have the right to raise the red flag, as we did in our last meeting, that there is a conflict of interest. And again, I want to reiterate that this was Mr. Griffin's process that he wrote to us in email. We're following his process. He did not say that we could not follow the steps concurrently. And for the sake of expediency and clarity, because the majority commission believes that we need a lawyer that is independent of the city that can give us independent counsel. There could be issues beyond what the ones that you're mentioning, so I just wanted to clarify those points. And I'm confused, as just a point of order, we had the motion, we had a second, we had a potential amendment that's unclear, and then another second. Is that what has happened? So I would just like to ask Ms. Benito if what the clarity of her, and I am happy to take back my second if I don't agree with it, because I would like to know what Ms. Benito is offering. Thank you.
Okay, as I understand it, the chair understands it, the Commissioner Benito's comment was a suggestion. She did not make a motion to amend your motion. So if you would like to make a motion to amend that motion, the floor is open to receive that motion and to entertain a second to that motion.
I would like to make a motion to amend, just because I think that this motion says that this will happen in the future, but we know that it's already happened. So I think that for expedience of being able to move forward on this and also making sure that we're being clear, I would motion to change item 3 to retaining or to affirm, I'm just checking the language, and to approve the recommendation of the utilization of Mr. Wallach as our legal counsel as laid out by this motion.
So I would ask, would you clearly state your amendment?
I move to change the motion so that item 3 is struck and that it is replaced by the commission shall engage Mr. Wallach as the counsel for this issue.
Okay, so a motion has been made to amend the motion on the table to delete Section 3, to delete Section 3, since Section 3 has already occurred anyway. Do I have a second to that amendment?
Second.
I have the motion to amend and the second has been properly put on the table. Let's vote on that amendment. We'll do a roll call vote.
I have a question. We would like to, my only concern, and I understand, Ms. Benito's amendment, but the problem is that I'm concerned that if we, are you suggesting that if we take out the clause about the ad hoc committee, I'm concerned that there will be contention about whether we follow Mr. Griffin's process? Or are we hiring Mr. Wallach? Because quite honestly, I'm a little bit tired of going back and forth.
I think we all are.
Okay, so we will.
As I understand, I was in that meeting with you and in the meeting with Attorney Griffin. At no point did he establish an ad hoc committee. At no point did he say that you are, that you all would be the one who will create an ad hoc committee. Robert's rules very clear. You cannot self-establish and you cannot self-appoint. You did that anyway. You began to interview attorneys, and now you're going to bring it to this commission to vote on your right to do that. And that is totally against the rules. We need to vote this amendment right now.
Sorry,
So the amendment has been made.
Mr. Van Laden has a point of
The
clarification.
amendment has been made and second. Let's vote on the amendment.
You are incorrect
Commissioner
about the
Adams.
Ms. Co-Chair,
Commissioner
please.
Adams.
Point of
Aye.
correction,
Aye.
please. Point of
Commissioner
correction, you have to
Benito.
stop.
Commissioner
Point of order.
Chura. Commissioner Chura, we're voting on the amendment to delete section 3 because this action has already occurred. So you're asking us to approve this and it has already happened. So the amendment is asking the deletion of section 3. So we have heard from Commissioner Adams, who has voted. We have heard from Commissioner Benito, who has voted. Now we are before Commissioner Chura. What's your vote?
There was more to the amendment.
Nay.
To the chair, as a secretary, there was a second part to the amendment other than just deleting
And it was approving that
section
lawyer.
3. So it was also to
Hire that lawyer.
Hire Mr. Waller.
To strike section 3 and in its place to engage Mr. Wallach, who was vetted by, well, I'll just say to engage Mr. Wallach as the counsel for this issue.
Yeah.
There are 2 parts, right? And I guess I just want to make sure that I understand that, and I think that the record needs to understand this as well. Your amendment basically disavows section 3 while also approving the results of section 3. So it seems to me that there's a conflict with your amendment.
Let it go. You gotta vote it up or down.
But that's, we can call for, do I have someone?
So you have sure.
Okay, wait a minute. So we have already begun the vote on that motion. That amendment basically is saying we are disavowing section 3, while you're also saying you are accepting the result of section 3.
Yes.
You're disavowing, it's a conflict there.
Let it go. You gotta vote it
But
up.
okay,
Vote it down.
so
Dr. Adams.
So let's go, understanding that there are 2
They
parts to
understand.
that. We're going to go back. Dr. Adams.
Nay.
Commissioner Benito.
Aye.
Commissioner Chura.
Nay.
Commissioner Donaldson.
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson.
Nay.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Nay.
Commissioner Reeves.
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer. Commissioner Van Leer.
Give me a moment, please. Chair, I'll say aye.
Aye. Commissioner Rodriguez.
Nay.
Commissioner Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Zayed.
Aye.
And Commissioner Ridgway, nay. Did you tally those as we did them? We're tallying the vote to see whether that particular motion passed or failed.
What do we?
6-6, so it failed. The motion, that amendment failed. If it's a tie, it fails. So now we go back to the motion, the original motion that was put on the table. And that's the motion that was read by Commissioner Wong. We received a second on it, and now we're ready for a voice vote on that motion. Commissioner Adams?
This is to pass the document?
Yes.
Nay.
Commissioner Benito?
Aye.
Commissioner Chura?
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett Ferguson?
Nay.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Nay.
Commissioner Reeves?
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer?
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez? Commissioner Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Zayed?
Aye.
And Commissioner Ridgway, nay. So let's count, tally the votes. 7-5. So, I'm sorry. I said nay. So the motion passes 7-5. 7-5. So it would go to, I guess, the commission. We have to establish a process for how that's done.
I would
And
like to
then
make,
bring it back
I
as
would
a
like to make a
report.
new motion. I move to after,
You haven't been recognized by the chair, Commissioner Wong.
Thank you.
So if you would ask for permission
Thank
from
you.
the chair to be recognized. We cannot come back and discuss this motion
I'm not.
again because it has passed.
Chair, we are at time, so you need to make a decision if you're going to motion to extend. However, I'm not certain that we want to hold the facility for much longer, so please consider that. We are at 8:30.
So, where is he? Do we know the length of how long we can be in the building?
We're at time, so
Okay.
be considered, we probably shouldn't extend.
So we're going to have to reconsider the next step at our next meeting. And so right now, the meeting
this is not done. This is not done.
We're done with this as of now. The meeting is adjourned, but we would take a beg pardon? No. So the meeting is adjourned.